Okay, so yeah, my topic's obviously Elvis. He was born in I think 1950s or something. When did you start teaching?
We started teaching in 1963,
1960, and then when did you retire?
1997.
Okay, so you were definitely so when you were in you taught music, right? Like, did
Yep.
you taught choir and band? I'm
Yep. I
assuming.
had choir, band, and yeah, stage band, pep band, all of the stuff that goes with it.
All right. Before, or actually, no, I couldn't say before because technically Elvis was around before you started teaching. But
Right.
how often would you say you like played Elvis music? Did you play like a lot in pep band or stuff?
Yep. And we played quite a bit of it in pep band, and we did some with swing choir too.
Would you say his music was like a completely different than like other music back in the time? Like, it was a big jump
Oh
for.
yes, yes. Um, when he first came out, up until when he came out, there was mostly big band stuff, dance bands, Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, that kind of stuff. And when he came out, he was totally different. It was rock and roll. He was the start of rock and roll.
Yeah, as king of rock and roll. I
Yep.
saw what people called him.
Hmm.
Um, what like what were people's views on him way back? Like, did people like his music? Did people think it was too different and they thought they hated it? What were people's views?
I don't think anybody hated it. I know from your grandmother's or your great grandmother's standpoint, my mother, uh, they thought his music was okay. They thought it was a little different, but they accepted it and they listened to it primarily because I did, I guess. But they thought it was okay. But there were people that hated it. They thought rock and roll would never last.
Yeah, because I read stuff where like people said rock and roll was like the death of like the teenage age or whatever. Like it was
Yep,
like, yeah,
the devil's
yeah,
music.
devil's music. That's what it is.
Exactly. But
Um,
you asked if we used pep band. One of the best titles that we used, and this was when he was in later life, was called "Way Down," and the audience loved it when we played that one. In fact, the basketball team asked that we would play that song when they came on the floor all of the time. So
wow.
if you ever hear it, listen to it. It's called "Way Down." It's a really good rock and roll song.
Yeah, maybe. Um, let's see. He died in 1977. You were still teaching.
Yes.
That like, do you think that like brought like other music stars to like change like their style, like not to like what it used to be, like bring out like different types of music? Do you think?
He stuck mostly with rock and roll all the way through until he died. But when he died, he was probably the last of the real, true rock and roll legends. There were others, Bobby V, some of those, but Elvis was the king of rock and roll, as they called him.
Was he an inspiration for you, and why?
I don't know that he was an inspiration for me, but I liked rock and roll. Yeah, I grew up liking it. It was a different genre than big band, but I still like rock and roll. That style rock and roll.
Let's see. Um, Crap, this is hard to think of questions. So, what does it say? Um, all right. When Elvis died in 1977, do you think that like inspired other people to like other bands or not bands or like just even singers in general to like stand out and make a difference or change their style of music?
I I couldn't really tell you on that right now or at this point. I Elvis was kind of on his downward type. You had a lot of other rock and roll singers that were out. He would still draw big crowds and everything, but most of his music was still his old style rock and roll, which didn't apply to anybody else. When he died, that style pretty much, I feel, died with him.
Do you think if he hadn't of like ruined his life, he would still have been going on? Like he would have had more like hit songs and stuff. Cause like
Could be.
cause like
It could be.
he like died from a drug overdose. So like, do you think if he wasn't sick, he could have been even more successful?
I think so. One of his, like I said, one of his last songs that he was popular for was the title "Way Down," and he could have easily had others just like that if he'd have lived.
Let's see. What was all right? This is a super simple question. What was your favorite song from him?
From him,
Yeah, like to sing. What was your favorite song to sing from him?
boy, um, "Won't You Wear My Ring," um, "Teddy Bear," and "Way Down." His American trilogy was really popular. If anybody ever imitates Elvis, like a karaoke or something, they will do the American trilogy.
Which for your school, which for your band, which was what? Do you remember what their favorite one was?
Way
Like
Down.
way down. I
Yep.
figured.
Yep.
Um,
With the swing choir, we had a 50s pop choir, and we would always do one or two Elvis songs in our concert. And the last ones we did were "Won't You Wear My Ring" and "Teddy Bear," and they liked those. They wanted to do those every year.
yeah, he has really good music. Um, I already did that. Uh, when you so like how you said like kind of how rock and roll was like devil's music. Were you like ever like been told not to like play his music or something like it's bad and you shouldn't?
No, no, I can't say. Where I grew up in Minot, we had a couple rock and roll stations that came out, and that's what they would play, that kind of music. And like I said, my folks, they didn't think anything was terrifically wrong with it. They listened to it too. But if they had their choice, they would listen to big band music because that's what they grew up with.
That's what, yeah. And it's too big of like a change for them to get used to.
Yeah, it
Whereas
was.
you were probably almost in that new generation where
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Um
I was 15 years old when he came out.
yeah, probably. Yeah, that would make sense. Um do you think his music inspired other artists
Oh yeah,
to
all of them.
stand out
Yep, yep, without a doubt.
as
Hmm.
yeah, with his just a huge jump, I think it inspired others to like
Hmm.
take a risk
Yep,
with
yep.
um what was your favorite like not like feature about him but like I don't know what's the word like his what he did like he was like really different he like would like dance his hair was weird his
Yep.
dancing what was your favorite part about him?
He, how do I say that? Um, I don't know. I can't really tell you anything on that one. Um, he kept the. You got to remember when I grew up at that age, the the long hair, the duck tail. I don't know
Oh
if you
yeah.
understand what it is. That's what he had, and he never changed that. He kept that his whole life. The rest of us grew up, changed the haircuts to fit the style. He didn't, and he was a very gracious man. He got to the point when he was famous, he couldn't go out in the public. So if he wanted to go somewhere, he'd basically have to want to go to a movie. He'd rent the whole theater for the night, and nobody else could get in but his people.
Do you remember of any of your students who like despised him and like would not sing his
No,
music?
no, they all liked it.
So there was no one that actually believed that was devil's music and stuff
No,
like that.
no, not even back when I was in high school either. When I was your age, no, no. In fact, when we'd go to dances at the high school on Friday nights, there would be students they'd always have a talent show, and there would be students there that would emulate him by playing guitar and doing all of his dance moves. And that's probably what threw most people off, the adults, is his dance moves. They thought they were very risque, let's put it that way.
His hips.
Yep.
Those
Yep.
don't stop moving.
Yep. When he was on the Ed Sullivan Show the first time, they didn't show him except from his waist up. They wouldn't show him.
Yeah. My opinion on him is that like, do you think, or no, actually never mind. Well, you can obviously tell that people still like honor him and stuff, because like even at other places you'll see like people like impersonating him, singing his music and stuff. So
Yep.
you would think that like he had a lasting effect on like music today, right? And
Yes,
he
did.
went
Definitely.
he went down as like one of the greatest music players of all time.
Singers, yes.
Yeah. Music, no, singers. What was it? How would you compare him to like players like or singers like in today, like
Well, how do I say this? A lot of the singers today, I feel, they do a lot of yelling and dancing and don't do much singing. And that's not their problem as much as it is the music that's written today. His music, if you listened to it, you understood it, you understood the words. Sometimes they were a little goofy, but there was no pitch correction or anything else. If he
no
messed up,
auto-tune?
he messed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the big thing I think of. Like, music back then is so different than it is now with like auto-tune.
Yes.
So many different types, like rap, hip hop, country. Where back then it was like
he didn't fit in anything. I mean, he wasn't big band, and if you weren't big band or dance bands, you were country, and he wasn't country. He took a lot of the black music from back then and put it into his own, and they made it into rock and roll.
yeah. So basically, he's like not the owner, but like what's the word for like someone who invents something, but like
He started rock and roll.
he's the founder. He's the founder of rock and roll,
He's
pretty
the
much.
founder of rock and roll. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's why most people probably remember him, because
If they grew up at that time, yes,
you know,
definitely.
and so many people like think of him when they hear a rock and roll song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you think rock and roll has changed like from back then to it is now? Like, do you think there's a difference?
Yeah. It changed in the 60s when it went from his style to the British invasion, the Beatles and
the
Mick
Beatles
Jagger and all of them. And then since then, it's changed drastically too. I don't know if you'd even call it rock and roll now. It's rock music, and it's
There's no roll. It's all scream. Yep. I think of it as people screaming into a mic and banging on drums. And
thank you. That's exactly how I feel.
I mean, like some songs aren't like bad where you can actually like hear like some singing, but like it's a lot different.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Yep. If you
Uh,
take one of his songs from the 50s and Hound Dog or Jailhouse Rock or any of those and put them on alongside a new 21st, 22nd century rock, and it's just unbelievably different.
so you said like the what's it called? Um, rock and roll changed in the 60s
Yeah,
and then 70s and
Beatles
then
with the
yeah.
Beatles.
And then later you said it changed too.
Yeah, in
So, yeah.
uh, the 70s and 80s, not so much, but then into the 90s and everything. Yeah, it's
So so he died in 77 and that was because of a drug overdose, but like
yep.
if he was like around longer and stuff and he went through like another change in rock and roll, do you think he would have changed his music or do you think he would have stuck with like
I
his
don't think it changed. He tried to keep this
try to
to it.
keep the old regular rock and roll?
Yep, I don't know if it'll last it or if it'll work, but you go through all of his, all of his concerts and everything. He stayed pretty true to that old style.
He did. I think do I have enough? I don't think I need any more really, because
Okay,
I think
if
that's
you
it.
do, give me a call back. No
All right,
problem.
thank you.
Thank you, Carson. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.